Hey everyone, it's Blair here at Time Trades. This week's video is going to be a little bit different. It's got a very bearish theme to it, but before we get into that, we're going to review a successful trade we had last week with UNG or natural gas. Now, this is what I saw back on September 8th. And despite a big boost from 13 to 16, I noticed there are still lots of high probability updates in the future for natural gas. And I noticed there's also a high probability pivot high in October 6th for natural gas. And not only that, all of the macro environment indicators were pretty supportive as well. It's hurricane season, which sucks if you live in the area, but it does help to keep the supply of natural gas limited as the Gulf supply is impacted. And of course, with what the Saudis did a year or two ago, by basically crushing the fracking business and lowering the oil price, that has also put some supply constraints in the market. So there's some very supportive macro reasons. And I think this is just kind of all coming to a head now as we see UNG ratchet up to the next level. Okay, so how did this play out? Let's go and take a look at TradingView, and we can see here. Here's that first tweet. You can see my trades there in blue, and this is an hour, 130-minute chart. So I kind of like 130 minutes because there's 3 bars in a day, so it divides evenly into a day. So I went long shortly after that tweet on the 8th and went up a little bit, went sideways, and then the boost started. And then last week on the 15th, I took some profits, took off half my options at about 100%, and then finally closed the rest of it when later in the day when, later the next day when there was a bunch of red. But still expect there to be some another wave up in UNG as we push into that October 5th pivot high. Okay, and that's about it for bullish setups right now in time trades. So let's go back to time trades and let's take a look at what else we are seeing here. You go to the Qs. Now the Qs are one of those symbols where it's generally pretty quiet in terms of high probability predictions. So I really pay attention when I see a high probability prediction. That's exactly what we've got here for October 8th. We've got a 79% probability of a pivot low coming up on October 8th. And that is also combining with a bunch of high probability down days as well. Okay, so I am short the Qs with October 15th puts. This is one of the things I really like about time trades is that I can target a specific day and I can buy just enough time that I need to make sure that that I've got that date covered, that I'll be holding. So I don't want to, I don't want to buy puts that are going to expire right on that day. That's too much theta burn. I like to buy puts or options in general that are going to expire a week or two after a pivot low or a pivot high. So that's what I've done here. And this forecast has been pretty consistent for the last few days. Of course, the forecasts are updated every day with new pricing information. So we will see what happens over time. But the interesting thing is that the Qs are not the only index or even major stock that's showing a high probability pivot low around that date. Here's IWM with a high probability pivot low on September 9th, and then another one October 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. So all of those are very high probability. All of them are above 50%. Okay. And also, if you compare this to the Gann waves, and this is one of the things I like about the Gann waves, is I like to, at least for IWM, I like to look at, okay, what happens after a yellow period, right? So we've got this high probability pivot low right after a yellow period in the Gann waves. What happened after the Gann wave here after the yellow period here? Well, we had a dump. What happened after the yellow period here? Oh, we had a dump. What happened after the yellow period here? Oh, we had another dump, another dump, another dump. You don't have to be Einstein to figure out what is the most likely thing that's going to happen here, right? So everything's kind of lining up for some bearish activity here. I think some of the perma bulls are going to feel like it's a crash because everything's been going up for like the last year and a half, ever since the COVID low. But I don't know where price is going to end up, but I think this could be, you know, it's a time of year when we start to see some big corrections, right? Big corrections tend to happen in the fall. We're overdue for a big correction here. The technicals are totally overcooked. And all of that's combining with the time trades forecast to make me feel like now's the right time to take a very bearish stance. Okay, so that's IWM. Also want to look at a bunch of others. XLU is a good one. XLU is the utilities subsector within the S&P. Look at that. October 6th, 7th, 8th, like 100% probability of a pivot low. Yeah, that's pretty big. Okay, so that's obviously caught my eye. What else can we look at here? Let's take a look at gold. Gold showing some high probability down days, and again, it's probably going to keep going down until the October 8th date, which, you know, we see this early October date keep popping up over and over and over again. And when you see this across multiple stocks, it sure feels to me like it's going to add up to something systemic, something really broad-based. And again, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised, but not us. We're going to be positioned for this, and we're going to be ready to take advantage of this flush down in early October by either flipping long or selling some put spreads or doing stuff like that. So that's always fun to do right in the middle of a big correction. So I asked myself, okay, what tends to happen in the middle of a big price correction like this? Because we've got a whole bunch of data points that are all pointing in the same direction. Well, US dollar tends to go up because there's a flight to safety. So what is UUP showing? We can take a look at UUP. It's a little ambiguous, but UUP is showing, you know, October 6th, there's a 34% probability of a pivot high. So UUP, if you don't know, it's the US dollar ETF, okay? So we don't have DXY in time trades. It's not available through my data provider. So this is the closest thing to that US dollar index. Now, this is a little in conflict or contradictory with these high probability down days here. And I mentioned this before, but typically whenever I see a scenario like this, where we've got some high probability down days just before a high probability pivot, I always tend to put priority on the pivot, okay? So this seems to be lining up with everything else that's happening in the market, including gold. Of course, you know, commodities are going to go down as the US dollar strengthens. And that's what we're seeing in the gold forecast, which is a high probability pivot low around October 8th. And that's also validated by the UUP forecast. Okay, so I hope that helps. Stay tuned to my Twitter, and I'll drop some updates during the week if anything interesting happens. But in the meantime, trade small, trade safe, and I hope you have a good week trading. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.